So I thought I would start briefly by just going over the roles, the kind of some of the main roles at City Hall as I've come to understand them, and please correct me if I'm missing something or don't have it quite right, but I think it's good for us to kind of look at overall what these roles are, and then we're printing off job descriptions for them as well, because this city manager position potentially will affect some of these other roles depending on how you guys want to do it. So starting from city manager, then just super briefly, obviously is kind of the chief operating officer of the city and manages the department heads. So, you know, water department, sewer department, each department head is managed by the city manager. That position is appointed by you, the council, and reports to you, the council, and me, the mayor. Yeah, right here. City managers have the responsibility of supervising all city employees and departments with the ability to hire or dismiss employees. So that's kind of that main role. Appointed by council is the important thing there, right? Next in line, so to speak,
No, I found this.
is the city clerk. You're right. Is the city clerk also appointed by council? So those are the two appointed positions at City Hall. And city clerk is kind of like the sort of the chief record keeper, you might say. Is that fair to say of City Hall, responsible to make sure that the minutes are kept? All these million things are filed.
And Mr. Mayor, that's the one position in the state of Iowa. As a city municipality, you are required to have a city clerk.
That's the one that's required. You're not required even to have a manager, but required to have a clerk. So the buck stops with the clerk. There are different ways to set this up from there, basically from there on. And so some cities do it one way and some cities do another way. But the way that West Liberty is set up is Lee as clerk also shares another role, which is, we call it a treasurer. It can also be called like a chief finance officer. So clerk, chief finance officer, or treasurer are, in some cities, there are two different roles. Sometimes they're combined. In our city, they're combined. And then we have a deputy city clerk, which basically kind of functions as it's a support role to those other two roles, basically to city clerk, and I think on up as well, right? And kind of that whole City Hall helps.
That is correct.
Serve those.
That is how it is established here with West Liberty.
Right.
Yeah, you're correct.
Clerk also manages the staff of City Hall is kind of how we're set up, right? So city manager manages the departments. The city clerk manages the administrative staff in City Hall. This is kind of how that's arranged here. Allie's printing off the job descriptions. I know you got it in an email, but it wouldn't hurt for us to just kind of walk through those. Does that kind of make sense? How those are set up?
Could I?
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that if you all check out, if you thoroughly read through your packets and all the information that comes with it, we get Cityscape. And in the January of 2022 Cityscape issue, there's an article in the middle of it that says who does what. If you read through that, it gives you kind of an outline of the mayor, the city manager position, city clerk position, deputy clerk, and city attorney, and other positions. And it just sort of gives you a summary of what they do and what is according to state code, what we need to have. It doesn't go into a lot of detail, but gives you a good general definition of the various positions. So I copied that off from it, but if at some point we can copy it, yeah, I can always, and then give it to everybody.
That kind of thing is helpful, or even reading it in the city code. you know.
I was gonna say, our city code designates those positions, and, code during the codification process. It's important not to have in our city code specific job description, but it's to give the brief description of the purpose of those positions. So.
Is there anything you want to add, I guess, to this, like the structure that we have right now, just to make sure we're all understanding how it's set up currently, or?
I think you've done well explaining how the current setup is.
So basically then the task before us tonight is figure out what you guys want to do, right? So you really have, I see it like two main options. And the city has utilized both of these in prior hiring for the city manager. You can hire a search firm that goes out and does headhunting and finds qualified candidates for the role. Brings them back and they set up this whole interview process and, bring them back, and then would narrow it down and you guys would choose someone out of that pool. That roughly costs what-ish?
Between 10 and 30,000.
Yeah, 20 to 30,000, something once it's all said and done, probably, for the process.
We haven't, so we have not, the last process we went through, it was a part of a contract arrangement with the interim. So she agreed to, Elizabeth Hanson agreed to do that as part of her contract agreement with the city. So prior to that, we had hired another consultant and we worked through that process. And I want to say at that time, because we ended up having to do everything because of COVID. So we ended up having to do probably more work internally because of that situation. And then I think there was more electronic process to it. I'm gonna say we were somewhere between 12 and 15,000 just for that.
Yeah,
process.
I reached out and that was the response I got. It was between 12 and 15 for that firm. But I also thought that was the firm was a discount.
And again, the consultant is one cost, but then the city still has the cost of the marketing, the advertisement, the cost of, putting together the procedure and the interview process and those things that go with it.
Right.
So in addition to just what your consultant cost is, we would have additional costs as well.
For arranging and having candidates come here.
You could try travel.
Transportation costs, moving costs for somebody when they do get hired. Yeah. So that's one alternative been utilized. The other one then is promoting internally. And so obviously you would cut out all those costs. And probably I think the thing to talk about, I guess, here tonight is, well, I think we should just talk freely about it and kind of get a feel for what your thoughts are, what your questions are about those two processes. And then maybe we should go into a little bit of, I think it'd be good to review these job descriptions and maybe look at qualifications that you would want to see, et cetera.
Excellent print quality. It's even running low on toner.
Huh. Expensive printer you have over here. It's out of toner.
It's a rental. Sorry. I have ADD,
How
folks.
much money do you need for a toner?
Contract, actually.
And I heard one from them, so, and I would invite Erin, she has the history, as she was a part of, the process of approving these job descriptions. She as well was a part of the process of the hiring and the contract, with the current city manager. And so, I mean, I would recommend, if that's okay with you, Councilman McFerren, she has some history. So if there's some specific questions, she may be able to
You bet.
assist with that piece of it.
Well,
So long ago, it was in 2020.
well, I mean, I'll give you my honest 2 cents worth.
Please do.
The city throughout the years has done it both ways. And we've hired consultants the last 2 times. And the last 2 times, we've done it both ways as well. We've promoted internally. And this last manager, he came in from the outside. So as far as which route to go, I don't know how well or how advantageous it really is going to be either way. So you're still gonna have your pros and cons. But I'm looking at it from the standpoint of what our city needs right now. We need boots on the ground. We need to continue this momentum we have because we don't have time to waste. Okay, and what's coming down the pike legislatively will impact our city budget. And again, we don't have time to waste. And as a steward, as one of 5 stewards of this city, my primary goal for me is to be financially sound. I believe in quality of life and thinking from the heart, but at foremost, my priority is first and foremost, making sure that I am ultimately responsible with governing of taxpayer money. Because that is what, in the end, I feel it comes down to. So in doing that, I am inclined to go the route of posting the position because we are bound by that. We
Yeah.
have to post the position no matter what. We
We do.
can't get out of that whether we go with a consultant or not. So my strategy would be to post the position in all avenues that we can, whether it's in professional fields of city management. We got League of Cities, we got bi-state, we've got all these resources that we belong to that we can post, and then that goes out regionally, that goes out through the state and possibly nationally. So we have those resources already. We don't need somebody to come and do that. We are bound to do that anyway. So I would suggest we just post the job position to garner applicants. We set a deadline date for when we're going to cut or stop getting applications. And then at that point, we gather those applications and they get forwarded on to however the mayor decides he wants to do that, or we decide we want to do, whether it's the employee committee or council as a whole within our packets. And then we will determine at that point, I think, gives us time too, on whether or not you all feel the need to spend the money for consultant, or whether or not we will review the applicants we have at hand and then choose from that. I'm inclined to do that because I think we need to keep going. We don't have time to lose. And on top of that, that's going to be right now a better avenue of financing. Because later on, once we close the posting position, we may get applicants. I know last time we utilized the Midwest Municipal Consulting LLC out of, I think it's Ames or Ankeny, was the consulting firm we utilized. And they had a hard time finding candidates. I believe we had 5 candidates that we applied for, but because of the nature of timeframes, one completely backed out because they had found something else in the interim. So we had 4 candidates to choose from, I believe is how it went. And from that, we set up the interview process, which we are bound to do, and brought them in, and we all interviewed them in one day. And then we made our decision. after the interviews. And that's how we chose.
So you're kind of saying to go, not to assume an internal promotion, to go outside, but do it ourselves, is kind of what you're saying.
Well, if that's what you want to call it, we have to post it no matter
Yeah, we
what.
do. For 10 days is the minimum legal requirement, has to be
Yeah.
publicly posted, the job listing, no matter what we want to do.
You know, if we go 2 weeks out and post it for 2 weeks, we at least will be doing what we are bound to do. Plus, we can see what kind of response we're gonna get from applicants.
Mhm.
And then go from there. And at that point, if people are dead set on a consultant, then I guess we can go that route, but keep in mind with the nature of deadlines, our budget,
Mhm.
and everything else that we have to do. It's going to be back to status quo for getting the jobs done. We're going to sort of be struggling along with that time frame of tabling things until we can get people in the positions we need. Because it's going to be at least 6 months before you even get a candidate here. And that's moving pretty quickly.
Certainly would
That's-
draw it out, yeah.
That's moving quickly. So you're looking, and plus, we're gonna have to get that candidate, that chosen candidate up to speed if they're coming in from the outside. So you're looking at probably next December. Before we can get somebody enacted, up to speed, hit the ground running. And I don't know if we have that time. That's,
I mean, to that point, that really is a point in favor of promoting internally, right? Because then someone is already up to speed, right? I mean,
well,
even
that is true.
if you hire somebody from outside. And I'm not saying, yeah, we're just talking here, we need to have a free discussion about this, but, bringing someone from the outside takes a while for them to get up to speed, right? No matter who it is.
Right,
So-
right. Yeah, no matter.
A
who.
while for them to get here and then a while for them to get up to speed. So there's definitely a time. frame.
And we've had it both ways too.
Yeah.
Dating all the way back to the early 2000s, where we hired a relatively new person in the field that was starting out as city manager, who had graduated from Iowa State University, to this last city manager we had, who had 25, 30 years of experience.
Right.
And I tell you what, to me, it does not matter. It simply does not matter.
It does feel like when we have, because I was part of the hiring process when I was on council before. And it seems like the candidates that tend to be attracted to a town like ours are either getting started, so then you have them for a couple of years and then they're definitely moving on somewhere else, or very likely. Or they're, toward the end of their career and kind of, coasting a bit, right? So there's your, that's kind of a trade-off of going outside.
I mean, the benefit with hiring somebody local or hiring internally, whichever, of those two, because you never know, you
You don't
get
know,
people locally that apply. Is that that they're already here.
Yeah.
They've got stock in this area, they've got family ties, they're committed to staying here. So many times we see people that come here and hard enough to find a house
Yeah, absolutely.
for them.
Yeah.
I think we spent $4,000 or $5,000 to move the last candidate here for a year and a half. So hard enough to find a house, and then you want them to stay.
Yeah.
So I just feel as though if there is benefits to doing either a local hire or hiring from within, definitely. But again, it's dependent on how you all feel about that. I am just,
I'm agreeing with Cara, honestly, like, I can think, just looking at the city manager qualifications. Like, I know of 2 people whose children go to West Liberty School who have these degrees. Not that they would be interested or not, but you never know, like, I would be more comfortable if we have to post the job, post it, encourage through word of mouth, or more publication on our social medias or whoever for those in the community. Obviously, we can't discriminate if others outside also apply, but to really, encourage folks that they feel like they're qualified to take a shot, and also it keeps us on that timeline, that quick timeline that we need to get stuff done. That doesn't necessarily mean if we were to hire someone who's local, that they would be able to hit the ground running if they hadn't done this before, but they do have like an urban development degree or something like that. They do have some background in that area, but it obviously feels a little better to me that they're gonna be more invested and stay in the community, because I think that's what's important right now, is that we have some stability. We have such huge projects going on that haven't really, I feel, since coming into this position, haven't had enough as much traction as they should have. Just because we're trying, to, even with the turnovers with council, not just, the turnovers with administration, but that's been just really hard. So I would love like a track to stability, whatever you all think that looks like. And understanding that we need to make the right decision and ask questions and make sure that we're doing that from every point of view. And that's my thought anyway.
And that's a good point, is stability and continuation of momentum. Because whether or not you say, whether or not you think that, we need somebody from the outside who's experienced and well-versed to, no, we need somebody that's new, that's eager and hungry. Whatever your impressions are that you're stuck with, you might as well throw those out the window, because it's, tell you what, once the person's in that position, it changes.
It is really hard to judge, yeah.
It changes. So yeah, I think that it may warrant looking for somebody who we know is going to be committed here. And yeah.
I do think that's important. I agree with that.
I like that too. I would like to see someone local and like stable within our community, because I feel like that's gonna keep us moving forward in the way we're going. Having an opportunity to hire from within, I always think is a positive thing. Should there be candidates that kind of fit that role, I'm definitely for that. I agree, Cara, with I just don't really want to hire a firm to search out candidates if we don't have to. With budget and all that, I just don't want to go that route. We will not need to. Definitely post it, see if anything comes along from all sides, and then kind of move forward. Is just the route that I think would be best.
So open to hiring, yeah, it sounds like everyone's open to hiring internally, but also other local candidates.
It's like you never know. You never know who's sitting out there that might come across it, and then
Yeah,
and if that's
I talked to somebody, a long time city resident, just today, like an hour and a half ago, and they told me, and I don't even think they knew that we were talking about this tonight, but they said, basically just what you guys are saying right now. For many years, we used to just find local people and they would stay, years and years ago, rather than find a firm, so that's interesting.
That's the thing. I would just love to see someone that's invested in the community,
Yeah.
invested in the workings of the city, invested in the businesses and the development. And I just want to see some energy from the
Yeah.
city manager. That's
And that has some experience in it, or that it's striving for
yes.
those goals, because there is a certain point where you need people that, because of today's society and the updates and requirements of this position, it isn't something to be taken lightly that you can just hire willy-nilly. It's somebody that we actually need for that has some experience, that has some teeth, and really, can
Yeah.
get in there and do the job and not like be so much, learning like very first day on the
Mhm.
job,
You guys have thoughts we shared.
Yeah. So, no, I'm collecting my words. I am on the autism spectrum. So when I look at like making decisions, I look at them in a very black and white way and a very like evidence-based way. And so I'm thinking that like I have qualitative evidence that people in City Hall think it's a good idea to promote from internally because I've gotten emails that say, this is great, we should be city manager, that's awesome. I worry that we don't have any quantitative data because nobody's had a performance evaluation in the last like however many years, right? And so promoting internally might be our best option, but we don't have any data to prove it. So I feel like opening up a search and collecting applications where you can compare them all and say, okay, clearly this is the best fit, or clearly this is the one, like that's, I can't think of any other way that we could, get data to show that this is the best like decision. So I think I think that's a great idea, because then in comparison, it's easy to see when you have it all laid out, like, yes, this is the best fit for us. I have a question about the structure of like the combining the treasurer and
Yes.
the thing. I just wonder, do you feel like that's the best way to do it? Because I was looking at, it seems like there's so much work all the time to do. And would it be better to have a treasurer person and a city clerk person who are not the same person? Would that be like less stressful?
Very good question.
The deputy city clerk is actually your treasurer.
That is
The city structure, so I have my certification as finance officer.
Okay,
The history of my position was I was hired on as the treasurer.
okay,
The treasurer is somewhat kind of an outdated title.
got it.
As you know, cities have progressed forward, they don't necessarily refer to it as treasurer.
Right
The
now it's all
duties
outsourced.
under a treasurer simply can fall under a city clerk or a deputy city clerk.
Got
It
it.
is, specific duties assigned to that role.
Mhm.
And so, for example, Shari as deputy city clerk has all the skills to do the treasurer position. And on top of that, she's got additional skills as well.
Right,
So the finance piece of that, there's not one person that's in City Hall in financial administration that does not have a piece of finance.
got it.
So for us to say, whether you call it a treasurer, whether you call it a financial officer, really it's a title and then define the roles.
Yeah,
So do you feel like the way that they're currently situated is the most efficient way? Like, I don't know, like you live the day to day, but to me, these are just papers. So like, do you like the way it's like this, or is it like there's a better, more balanced way that we could do it?
The way that it is established is the way it should work.
Okay,
The truth is that we've not had the opportunity to work that structure.
because of all the turnover and the stuff,
Yeah.
Okay.
Just because
because
of,
reasons.
and what's happened is because of turnover and transitions. From the time I was hired in as treasurer in 2012, it has been a revolving door of turnover transition. And what happened is from treasurer through to where I'm at today, I have, for the most part, I've carried all those duties with me.
Right,
Okay, and the idea in 2020, when these were adopted, was the segregation of duties, aligning those duties with those titles, and being able to move forward where we were not overwhelmed by the workload.
right,
And most importantly, would be to have the segregation of duties, the checks and balances, and most importantly for us is the opportunity to cross-train and create a work environment that, has the knowledge, knows how the pieces are connected, and have the opportunity to advance
okay.
a succession plan. that was the idea behind the structure that you have in front of you.
Yeah, so it can work if
It
everyone.
just hasn't, yeah, it just
if-
hasn't had the
If each of
opportunity.
those roles are filled, and would you say that if council wanted to promote internally,
Mhm.
then would you keep all these roles the same? Do you think that would be your recommendation? I guess I'm looking at you two as well, Shari, as deputy clerk. Council, you have a,
I'm sorry, I don't mean to
I
interrupt.
was just gonna say if, yeah, I guess I would like to hear just if you feel like you would want to split those roles potentially, finance and, or you would rather keep it clerk treasurer, deputy city clerk.
I
kind of your
think that they, so those roles need to be separated. There needs to be a segregation. And it doesn't not, I'm not saying we can still have a city clerk finance officer because that is what she's going to get her certification. That's her official title with her certification. Once she establishes those. The roles, however, need to be segregated.
But we're just talking
The
about
deputy
titles here.
clerk, Yeah, the
It's not-
deputy
yeah.
clerk, and that's where it gets.
Yeah.
That's where it gets gray.
Yeah.
The deputy clerk can be the one who is assigned those
Sure,
finance treasurer.
that answers
Does
my
that make-
question, just
Yeah,
talking
I
about
just-
titles.
Yeah,
Go
because I think that, I hate to get too like caught up in, binding people by, these boundaries of, because that's gonna change. That will ebb and flow and change depending on our needs as time goes
Sure.
by, or requirements change. But for the most part, those are what the latest information that we can come up with when we reviewed those, and that's what came of it. Now, keep in mind, we're all new. We've had turnover, plus on top of it, it was the perfect storm of pandemic.
Yeah.
Things sort of got put on hold, plus we've had a lot of litigation issues that were unexpected, and those things sort of played a part in assuming a lot of our attention. So things kind of were on the backlog a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think no matter what, whoever we choose to be in a city manager position is, their style of governing and their management skill is who is going to determine that and work with the council on doing those segregation of duties, because ultimately that's what the auditors and the state is going to require us to do, is segregation of duties, not, oh, you're treasurer and, we have to, no, we're not gonna get stuck on those semantics. We're gonna do what we need to do as far as the management leadership deciding, the admin leadership deciding what needs to be done and being capable enough to make those decisions.
Yeah, makes
So,
sense.
yeah.
Omar, did you have anything you wanted to chime in on this?
Well, no, I hear all you guys, propositions, and I think it's fair that we post outside. I like the internal idea as well. But, sometimes you want to see what's out there, just to get your mind going and working and see, just do comparisons and stuff like that.
So we have oh yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, and then, internally, it's kind of cool because I think all of us, we kind of know each other. We go out from the community, we all know what the community needs.
Yeah.
And when you bring somebody in new, you don't know where they're coming from.
Absolutely.
Because they be coming from like a royalty place, and then, they come to town here and they're just kind of like, oh, this is just not what I'm used to, or they're they'll compare from where they came from to where they are now. Just, sometimes externally it's not the best way when you're coming from a small little town.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
And we're West Liberty. We have to be realistic.
I just want to add, so from a city manager, upon hiring a city manager. I mean, part of their job is going to be assessing your organization. I mean, their job is that HR management of, assessing how your structure is. And that's never ending.
True.
Again, that was the basis of where we started, is there was always going to be along in line with your annual evaluations. There's that assessment of you know, who's doing what, or who's still doing this, and does that still make sense for that? You know, we put that, you know, duties as a sign.
Yeah.
But that's because you're leaving it open-ended, because there may be an individual in your organization that's better suited because of their skills.
Yeah, you have some flexibility.
Right, and
So
then.
it's worth remembering that council's job is to set in to appoint the city manager and the city clerk. And then, you know, that staff kind of works out the rest of it, right?
And then
Then we get out of the way.
you set the policy,
Yeah.
the city manager manages the policy.
How long would you want to post that job for? We're required to post it for 10 days.
And business days or
So-
10?
Very good question.
I need, yeah, I was gonna say, so from an HR perspective, I have a couple questions for
Please,
you.
yes, fire.
So.
Yeah, we need help with this.
I'm saying you're required posting for 10 days. My first question is, are you going to do internal applicants first? And then external applicants?
What would be typical?
You don't, I'm not, you don't have to give me an answer. I just want you to think about it for a second, I should say.
What would be
We
typical?
just get them all.
Internal first and external.
We could. I mean, to save time, I would think we should just get them all at one time.
So, but here's the process. though.
Yeah.
So
Walk us through the process.
you're
Yeah,
going, March 31st, you no longer
Right,
have a city manager, right? So let's go backwards from that time frame. So we're looking at posting for 10 days, then who is going to handle the publication? Who is going to handle the collection of those applicants? Who's going to organize those applicants? And is that gonna go before a committee? Then what is the expectation on that committee? Then they're gonna have to bring that to council with their recommendations. From that point in time, then the council is gonna have to take that, and from those recommendations, and they're gonna have to take action. And so again, I'm just trying to give you an idea that come March, you're gonna run out of time. You're not gonna make it to March 31st with that process.
So March 31st comes around. And we no longer have a manager. Do we have to have an interim or no?
Somebody,
You have to have an interim. You're gonna have to have.
what's gonna happen by default is
Yeah.
the city hall staff is gonna end up picking up the slack, is what's gonna happen,
We
whether.
designate somebody who's going.
Yeah, because I didn't know if like we can still run as a city. without
But that's-
a manager, but-
And that's a
it's
part of that,
an
that's the
awkward-
next part of the process that I'm gonna ask you is, I'm saying because of those steps. Which is fine, but then that's the thing you also have to be thinking about is that March 31st is gonna get here before. These other steps are done, so you also have to be thinking about what is your plan? Are you gonna do you wanna reach out to the League of Cities? And ask for an interim to come in and manage the city? Knowing that they're not in a position to, they're just gonna keep the wheels on the bus. They're not gonna have information of the community. They're essentially just gonna, like I said, keep the
What do
wheels
you
on the
think the
bus.
minimum timeline is? Would you say would be feasible to actually run a process like that through? No, like if council wants to list the job and collect applicants, external applicants, and go through a hiring process or an evaluation process, you know, it's February 21. So, I mean, I'm just trying to get a sense for,
I'm gonna say 90 days if you're moving fast. And that may be putting special council meetings, that's gonna be putting special council meetings on your list.
so you're looking at an interim for 60 of those 90 days, basically.
And then also please consider again. You have to be thinking about who's going to administrate all of that, because that,
Yeah.
you know, as costly as a consultant is. You're going to be spending additional dollars because now you've added another project to your financial administration. Because typically, of course, your financial administration is gonna be the ones who are legally posting. And they're the ones that are gonna be managing that publication. And then you're going to have, the clerk is going to collect those applications and then get them to the committee. And then the committee is gonna have, and then there are rules with how you collect and how you go through those applications. That's why a
That's
consultant.
why we can hire a consultant to do all that.
Right.
So
because they're
you're
gonna
kind of
be-
saying that it wouldn't necessarily simplify the process a whole lot to just. To do it. So answer me this, because I don't quite understand the process.
You're welcome to speak up. So Sherry's been there a part of,
Yeah.
a couple of these processes.
Answer me this, though, if you would, how does the process work if we're required by law to list the job publicly for 10 days? I mean, don't we basically have to go through that process anyway? Like, how do you
So that's gonna be a
circumvent that
legal-
process if it has to be posted legally anyway?
I think that those are questions that I would refer you to legal counsel.
What is a normal process? Well,
The normal process would be,
It's,
for any job hire is going to be posting for 10 days. And then
but we have the option to internally post. Right?
you can internally post
Yes.
first. yes.
If there's no viable candidates that express interest when we post internally, then we would have to take it
Then
externally.
you-
in other words, we're not required by law to post it externally. Only internally satisfies that.
If your internal candidate has satisfied your position, then you do not have to post it externally. But again, I'm just simply gonna say, I'm gonna refer it to legal counsel.
But no, that's interesting, because we just don't know the process, right? So
So you can't skip the internal posting part, you can't just do an external one and say this is internal and external at the same
well, I
time.
think you could do that,
Oh.
but the thing is if you want to do that, great, but that there's no way then to avoid that long drawn out process of handling all the applicants, right? So
Yeah,
if you're ready for that, I mean, that's, you know what I mean? We have options here. You have
Well,
options.
And if you didn't have any, so I think you're all aware you have an internal candidate interest.
Mhm.
If you didn't have the knowledge ahead of time, or again, I mean, your process would be wanting to post for an internal candidate to see who you have. You may not, you may know of one, but there could be more than one, that are
That's
interested.
the reason for the requirement to post internally is what you're saying. Okay.
And we do have an optional closed session later. Maybe it's where we can ask those other questions.
I think that's a good
And then
idea.
make a decision, right?
Yes. Yeah, we don't.
Go more in depth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because Ashley mentioned there hasn't been reviews done and things like that, like maybe we can,
Other very concerns. that we-
yep, maybe we can speak more candidly.
Yeah.
In that session, but.
So are there any, that's great point. Are there any other questions that we have right now about this, just to kind of set we've got 9 more minutes before we start our main meeting, just to kind of keep gathering info here.
I remember when that Pat Callahan guy came over to us about goals and stuff, and he has a medical consulting firm, and I just wonder if that's something that, if he already knows us and us, if that's something that he might inquire about, like, hey, can you help facilitate this process? We don't need like a big old headhunter situation, we just need like a little bit of help getting this going, like, I wonder. It's got a nice little website.
I know,
So-
I know another consultant too that grew up in West Liberty, who lives in Des Moines, who does consulting, like knows West Liberty in and out.
There's a process to that.
Yeah.
So council would have to set the request for proposal. Then that request for proposal for consultants goes out. And then you're going to get a list of those consultants, and then you're going to have to make a decision because they're applying to be your consultant.
Mm.
Then you're gonna make that decision based on them. And based on who you're gonna choose to be the consultant to handle that process. And I know right off the top of my head, you have Brent Henson, you have Pat Callahan, which they team up they team up. You have, Manny Toribio.
Yep, that's
You
what I was talking
have,
about.
and you have Elizabeth Hanson with Midwest. Those are your top, they're the busiest consultants right now in the state. I can tell you that there's probably not a week that's not gone by that there hasn't been a city manager hiring. So, recently you've got Independence, Iowa, of course Huxley. I think Carroll, Iowa has posted. So there's a lot of competition for the city out there as well.
Yeah.
But again, I appreciate, your conversation about wanting to simplify it. When you're dealing with a position such at this level, my recommendation would be a consultant would keep it within the legal realm, and they would be the one who would be managing these things that your administrative staff certainly, we don't have that within our workload at this time that we would be able to manage for you as it should be.
Yeah, okay, that's clear, good clarification there. So I learned a lot with this, so this about internal and external posting, that's good to know. Yeah, any other questions, I guess, because I would like to take a real short break here.
I think the last question, our posting has to be before the end date or after.
I don't think we have any requirements on when to post,
Yeah, you
it
can
just has to be posted for a
I don't
minimum
know
of
if
10 days.
And-
they finish its term and then.
No,
post.
No.
No, we can
We can
post
do that.
before.
Sooner the
And,
better.
and our posting it, the only requirement for posting is the city bulletin board.
Gotcha.
However,
let's do one.
that's not gonna, from what I'm hearing from you,
Depends on what your
What's your
council's
goal?
intentions
yeah,
are.
what your goal is.
Okay,
Okay,
all right, sounds good. Anything else? Can we take just a 5-minute break here?
Yeah.
All right, close this session. You guys ready?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening. We'll call the meeting to order. It is 7:32 on February 21st, 2023. The meeting of the City Council of West Liberty, Iowa. I'm Mayor Ethan Anderson, and we have with us tonight Mayor Pro Tem Cara McFerren and City Council members Dana Dominguez, Ashley Smith, Josh Schiltz, and Omar Martinez. How's everybody doing tonight? Good, great. Good. Item number 2 is approval of the agenda. Your motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second. Moved and seconded to approve the agenda. Any discussion about the agenda? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. Item number 3 is something that's been fun for me to be a part of as the mayor. And so very happy to announce we have a new police officer here in town, and I have been provided with the oath. So I'll just invite you to step over here, Justin, in front of the flags. So Jamara can get her shot. And I'll read this for you. If you want to raise your right hand. I, Dustin L. Brooks, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa. I do. Why don't you repeat after me, and I'll pause for you, and you can repeat each line. I, Dustin L. Brooks, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States.
I, Dustin L. Brooks, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the state of Iowa.
And that I will faithfully and impartially,
And I will faithfully and impartially,
to the best of my
to
ability,
the best of my abilities,
discharge all duties as police officer
discharge all duties as police officer
for the city of West Liberty, Iowa,
for the city of West Liberty, Iowa,
as now or hereafter required by law.
as now and hereafter required by law.
You got it. Congratulations. Picture? All right, great.
Excellent, thank you.
Well done. I would say it's a little while to get our cadence there, but I was gonna say, well, that's just practice for next time, but I hope you stay a long time, so no practice, just that's it. Great. We'll move on to item 4, approval of the consent agenda, which is the city council meeting minutes from our last meeting and the sewer report from February. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve consent agenda?
Moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. Beer and liquor licenses. 5A, Dollar General is requesting to renew their Class B retail liquor license. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve is.
We'll do these one at a time. So Dollar General, is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve Dollar General's liquor license. Any discussion?
Has there been any issues with Dollar General that we know of?
No, all the research that Ed Officer Holmes looked into this for me today is because I was out of town for meetings, and all three entities, he said there were few, if any, issues. And there were several, we call them a bar check, it's a business check where we go in and check in and see how things are going. There have been several of those with zero issues.
Excellent. Any further discussion needed for Dollar General? This is a consent vote, correct?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. 5B, Highway 6 Spirits LLC, which is JB's Grub and Pub, Class C retail liquor license. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve JB's liquor license. Any discussion? Chief, has there been any issues there?
That's, I think, Jack's favorite place to go do checks, because he did several business checks there, but again, very few issues. And they're usually happy to see him for one.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion carries 5-0. 5C, Muscatine County Fairgrounds, Class C retail liquor license.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve Muscatine County Fairgrounds liquor license. Is there any discussion?
When they have events, they have the reserve deputies that are always working, and then they always check in with us, let us know what's going on. The few suggestions I've had for things that they could change, or questions I've had, they've been really receptive of, and there've been few issues.
This is for activity center? Yes. So just to clarify, you're gonna see another liquor license in the future on your agenda for Muscatine County. So this one is for the two more.
The
This
beer
one-
garden and then the racetrack. So you'll see two more coming up. Those are later on. This one is just for their main one that's at that activity.
This is the activity center. Okay, gotcha.
Gary.
I'm sorry, I forgot to announce that city staff is with us tonight. City Clerk Geertz, Deputy Clerk Shari Hoffert, City Manager Dave Oakland is off today, not feeling well. And Library Director Ali Parsmith is with us. Who else is here tonight? Yes. Our Police Chief Eric Whirling. And also happy to have Chamber of Commerce President Cassie Rotting with us tonight, as well as past President and Director, We Lead Director. We have a room full of celebrities here tonight. Thank you all for being here. Okay, we'll move on to item 6, vendor voucher claims list. Oh, did we not approve? Sorry, 5C, I got carried away.
You have a motion in a second. I just need the vote.
We have a motion and a second to approve the Muscatine County Fairgrounds liquor license for their activity center. All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. Vendor voucher claims. This printed one that we got, is that the updated one? Is there a motion to approve the vendor voucher claims list?
Motion to approve vendor vouchers claims list.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the vendor voucher claims list. Is there any discussion?
I just had a question on item 20. Is that the PD vehicle thermal fitter? Is that in the office or is that on the squad car?
So the new squad car,
Uh-huh.
I didn't put it in to even think about the printer itself. The mount was part of the quote, but I didn't think about we would need a physical another printer, so I had to order one. I think that's supposed to be cables.
Any other questions? Okay, if none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. Public comments and correspondence. Are there members of the public here for public comments? If so, great, glad you're here. You could just tell us your name and address for the record. And I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Excuse me. Tom Junker, Junker. I live at 201 North Walnut Street, apartment A1, West Liberty. I'm here concerning the construction that's taking place at the end of Walnut Street. This is my second trip to this group, not you folks, Clerk. And I represent a group of elderly people at Sunnyview Manor. And Walnut Street is right off Prairie. If anyone was to look for it. I attempted to get some signatures from people along the street so that I could hopefully emphasize more about why I'm here. But no one wanted to sign them because they were afraid of retribution, and I'll explain that to you in a second. Walnut consists of, and I'm trying to read my notes as I'm looking. Walnut consists of 8 houses, apartments, and apartments, 2 different separate groups. The street itself is a 2-lane street. There's parking allowed on one side. It has a curb in it, so it's not a straight street by any means. And as of now, at any given time, this is constantly, nor is it all the time. There are 90 cars that have access to that street. In other words, 90 cars of folks who live along that street in the apartments and on the street. I asked the city managers, the last 2, if there had been a traffic study done on this street. And both of them kind of said this, whoops, no, I guess we didn't. I asked why, neither one knew. It appeared to me it just wasn't done, got overlooked, or someone just didn't care. The noise and the speeding along this street, again, the people in my area are elderly, accessing the road, having to come out onto it. The noise and the speeding along that road as it sits now, it is very bad. Especially in the summertime, as the traffic picks up, people move more out and about. And the construction that's taking place has already taken place and is taking place is where Geertz is moving or is building his apartments back at the end of Walnut towards the railroad tracks.
Short Street. That's called Short Street.
I only know my address is Walnut, so
Yeah, it's Walnut, and then at the elbow,
After the
it
curve.
curves, it's short.
okay, that I didn't know. So Short Street. With the new construction that's going to be taking place, just like the last, the trucks coming through there, the dirt, and the noise, and everything is quite a bit.
Yeah.
More than anybody would really wants to put up with. I understand can't build something without construction.
Yeah.
My point is that this adds to why I'm here. There are a group of cars. There are cars, trucks, even a couple ATVs that go up and down that street. The ATVs aren't licensed. But for somehow they show up there, go from the apartments up to the stop sign and back again. I assume they're doing that because they don't really have any concern that there'll be any police presence in that area. And by the time somebody would call the police, one of them stays up at the other end, watches while the other one runs back and forth. And motorcycles, for some reason, it seems like the town has a number of motorcycles where the guys, people don't have baffles in. So they rattle your windows. And the thing that I'm concerned about, I've been concerned about is with Gary's apartments that are standing now and what he's proposing is going to increase this whole mess significantly.
Yeah.
It could, depending on how many he builds, we could be looking at 144 cars on that road that have access to that road and will be needing to go up and down. That's a bunch. This is a dead end road, folks. The answers that I have, and what I'm hoping that this will strongly be considered for the safety of the people that live on this road, as well as the peace and quiet that we had before Gary started building back there. And I know he didn't start it. Those doctors started and took their money and ran like hell. But Gary's, I'm told, is getting ready to start more construction.
So if I could just interrupt you, I don't want to cut you off, but I just want to try to recap what you're saying. We're glad you're here.
Yeah.
And it sounds like it's an annoying problem.
More than that.
So it's a lot of traffic on the road, the extra traffic with the construction vehicles moving in and out. It sounded like you had an idea for a solution. If you could give us that and then.
Are you wanting me to hurry?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I was wanting to know. Okay, so I will slow this or speed this up some. Okay, when they built the original ones, again, the traffic study, they didn't even think about fire and ambulance going in and out. There was no place to turn around, come back out. So they would have to back out of there. Again, somebody really goofed when they didn't even think of that. My suggestion and hope is at the end of the one-way street to the right, as you face the railroad tracks, there's a road there. The road runs along the railroad tracks. It's just a gravel dirt road back there, but it is a road because there's a house back there, somebody living there. I'm proposing that access road be opened up before this next construction gets done, so that we'll have two ways for folks to get in and out of those apartments.
And for emergency vehicles.
Yeah, obviously, yeah.
I know that area. I used to live down in that area actually, and I know exactly the road you're talking about. I think, well, go ahead and continue, please. Let's go ahead and finish.
So without an access road, you can see that the amount of traffic there is going to be enormous. And also, if Gary's going to continue to build those things back there, we have a concern, with that many people stuck in that little spot on the railroad tracks.
Yeah.
Is it going to turn into a knife and gun club? I don't have any idea how many people you can stuff back there and still maintain quiet. So the road is my proposal in hopes that one will be built before he's done. And the other thing that I have for you is just speed bumps. Now, speed bumps was brought to my attention the last time I brought this up to the city manager. And he said, whoa, you can't put speed bumps in there because of the ambulance and fire department. That doesn't make any sense to me at all. speed bumps will slow them down. Nobody's gonna wanna hit those things, because what they do, they come out of the driveway at the apartments to see how fast they can get going before they hit the stop sign. So we're not talking about 20-mile-an-hour
Right,
traffic in there. It is excessive in
Yeah.
speed and the noise that goes along with it. I encourage all of you to, any more signs are useless. If you put up a sign 20 miles an hour, nobody's gonna pay attention to it. They don't care now, sign's not gonna be anything, because there's no police presence there, and I can understand why there isn't. By time someone calls them and they get there, whatever's happening is long gone. And so what I encourage everyone to do is take a ride down that street to see what I'm talking about. And I'm concerned that all the lack of city control on that first buildings, and there's been no definite move towards correcting the problems. It looks like it's just the city wanting revenue. Let's just get the revenue, and the rest of it, it isn't important. It's just, we gotta have that revenue from those apartments now and the new ones that are planning on coming in.
Mr. Junker, thank you for coming and.
Can I just say one more thing?
Okay.
One more thing and I'm done. I'm sorry.
No, I don't want to cut you off.
But I
No,
don't get a chance to do this, but once
You
again.
bet, yeah,
Come
more often. I'm not kidding. We appreciate your input.
yeah, no, that's fine, but, and so my last comment is, if any of you would ride down there, look at it. Just say to yourself as you're riding down there, looking at everything, would I buy a house in that street? I think you all would say to yourself, I don't want this mess in my front yard and go and buy my house. And so it's not a matter of anything other than what we deserve living on that street, and what we don't deserve to continue happening is getting worse. I'm
Yeah.
finished.
Thank you, yeah, I appreciate you saying that, and,
Oh, I just had a
Go
quick
ahead.
question, and you might not know the answer. Are they teenagers that are doing this, or can you not tell? The ATVs and the racing and the
Yeah,
teenagers, or,
there are teenagers going up and down. They're
Yeah.
mostly in the ATVs.
okay,
Yeah, and there's a couple of real constant violators back there.
Mhm.
That are speeding and making all kinds of noise, but they did it on purpose because somebody called the cops on it.
Mhm.
And also the school kids that come from the corner of Prairie and Walnut
Mhm.
walk down there along the sidewalk they're supposed to be,
Mhm.
but they often end up in the street because they just don't care whether they're in the street or the sidewalk. So occasionally their children is walking in that street off the schools, not every day or all the time.
Right, that's dangerous. Okay, thank you.
That's it.
any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
You had mentioned that nobody was willing to stand by and sign to this. I'm just curious as to why they wouldn't testify to this or sign your.
Oh, retribution. The one person that called last. The two vehicles that are two of the biggest offenders are intentionally the biggest offenders. Because he called about them, they were stopped. And after things passed a while, they decided, okay, well, that's gone. But now we're gonna make as much noise as we can going back and forth across past this guy's house. And even at times, they even honk as they're going by. They're just wanting to irritate this guy as much as they possibly can. And they're succeeding.
Yeah. I'm sorry to hear that that's happening. That sounds distressing, as it would be for any of us.
Yeah,
Wouldn't want that
distracting
outside
to
of-
say the least, and it is very dangerous.
Yeah.
And gonna become more dangerous because of what's already happened.
Yeah.
Anything else anybody would have to ask? No?
I do agree, because I'm familiar with that area, that there is a lot of traffic issues. And for that amount of building and housing for that dead end street does really concern me, so I totally, can vet what you're saying. From that point, if, with the potential of having other phases of construction and building in the future, that concerns me just as well. But the access point you were talking about is kind of an alleyway between Prairie Street Apartments and single family housing that lead right up to the depot. There's like a gravel, used to be gravel, now it's kind of overgrown alleyway that goes back along the railroad tracks and then down parallel to Short and Walnut. And the only access to that right now is from Walnut. There isn't any access on the north part of Short Street. But there could be, because there's property there that is a vacant lot.
Yeah, if I misunderstand, and
There's
I
a
may
vacant lot there.
misunderstand you, but the access that the house has that are there is there now. As he gets over the railroad tracks, right away he turns right and follows the railroad tracks and back to his house.
Right, yeah, but I'm saying from Short Street to that road, there isn't any real access the city
No.
has. But a vacant lot that, as far as I know, the lot is for sale. But I don't know if it's sold or not, but there's a vacant lot there that you could continue the dead end of Short Street.
Yes, ma'am.
To that alleyway,
Yes.
gravel drive alleyway. Yeah.
I don't know where eminent domain would fall here, but somehow I've got to think the problem can be solved about another access by the city in some
Because-
way.
I don't know if we'll solve the whole problem tonight or not, but Mr. Foley, can I put you on the spot? Has that ever been looked at, that access there?
Yes, it really has. When we first
Our
did
city
that,
engineer.
and a long time ago, this was done before the first apartments were there. And they did a plat. And there was talk of putting another access through their parking lot. So at least you'd have two accesses.
Yeah.
Onto Short Street. We did also look at bringing it out along I think it's the gravel road that the gentleman was talking about. But if I remember right, the ground wasn't for sale back then, and I know the city was not interested in trying to take the property. But if it's for sale, yeah, I mean, I know it's a problem, there's no question that one.
Yeah, it's definitely.
So it kind of has been looked at,
Okay,
but not I think it even came to council maybe one time about putting that other access through the parking lot. I know that came to council once.
City Clerk Geertz, you were gonna share something?
Yep, so I'm just gonna piggyback on to Leo, so it's probably been 3 times.
At least once.
And here's what I can tell you at this point in time with the development. Based on what we have in front of us now, the development must have an emergency access turnaround before they can continue the next section.
Okay, so that's already in place.
The development is part of a TIP agreement, and the council has the ability to leverage that TIP payment based on the developer following those rules that were set in place with that agreement. The project itself was approved in its entirety by previous council. There has been discussion with Mr. Geary with his next phases. As TIF is no longer available for those phases. The discussion, and I cannot answer where it's at, this would be more for the city manager. I don't know if it's progressed. There was interest that now that land has become available, that Mr. Geary certainly would consider taking a look at that. If there would be TIF opportunity, if he was to develop an exit access, so you have one way in and one way out.
I see.
So, there's definitely some more work that needs to be done on that.
Is that something that, I mean, to that, what you just said right there, more work to be done, is that something that could be kind of add it again to the to-do list, to look at that again. And, see what potential options could be maybe brought to council. Because, I mean,
So I would recommend your public safety committee, when you appoint the committees or how, I would recommend your public safety to address Mr. Junker's concerns about the ongoing, because this is not just from him. This is from several residents in that area. I know that they brought this to several city managers. And it is looked at and then it's forgotten about. And I'm not pointing a finger to blame or anything, but I'm just saying, then it goes back to becoming where Mr. Junker has to come in and have that discussion. So that would be a recommendation that to start working on a resolution for those pieces. And then the other part would be some more discussion to find out where we're actually at on that development. And then council, mayor direct, management as to what we would like to see.
that sounds good. And I think, Chief Whirling, you want to say something? That's where I was gonna go next.
I agree that it needs better access, because even just getting a small squad car in there and being able to patrol the area is difficult, and it's difficult to turn around, because when the parking spaces are full, it's hard to even just get a squad car turned around, let alone an ambulance or a fire truck. So I agree that we really do need to consider that.
Okay.
Another piece about this area that he's talking about is, when I first started, Shari was working hard to try and get that area cleaned up, because it's a dumping spot. Because when Short Street dead ends, people drop stuff there, and then it becomes an eyesore and it looks terrible. And then it's a lot of paperwork and city resources to pick those up. And it's, I think, making that a through street somehow, making that access will solve multiple problems.
I was gonna ask you specifically, Chief Whirling, about police presence in that area. I mean, would that be something that you could just give more?
Yeah, because we've gotten to, like, speeding on Prairie is a fairly common report. I haven't gotten as many about Walnut, but yes, I can put that up to my officers, for sure. Okay.
I also got a text from those that are online saying speed bumps will not harm our engines and ambulances. So if speed bumps is something that we can do something, short-term fix to at least.
It would be great. It would really take care of part of the problem.
And I just want to add, I just want to say that Mr. Geary is very willing. And he purchased in a development, and I've only heard nothing from Mr. Geary is that, he wants to make it work. But again, I mean, the development was approved and he's continued. So I want to say that on his behalf, that he's definitely willing to listen and work with the city, work with the neighbor. So in all fairness, he's not here, but I can tell you that anytime this comes up, he's more than willing to work.
I think he's a really good community supporter.
Absolutely.
So action item, will you have the city manager and do the next steps for that, or what does public safety, do we have to meet, like, do we have on the books?
Let me go to Ken Brooks here.
Yep, so for the time being, my office has been involved with this development project. I'll prioritize the entrance exit situation. And I'll put that on my plate and then bring some recommendations.
So you're saying you'll take the lead on figuring out the traffic issue?
As it relates to the new development and that second access.
Okay.
And when you're talking access, we're talking access from the development. Not access to the road, because there's in my mind, there's two types of access. Access from the parking lot, which I've always thought was needed. And then access from the road might be needed now. In the past, it was looked at, but not very serious. But access from the parking lot was looked at very seriously by council. So I probably can get you guys some schematics we've done in the past.
If you guys could, is that inside the purview that you're wanting to take on? That's fine. Mr. Brooks, okay. Excellent, that sounds good, wonderful. Well, I hope that we can find some solutions here. As a city, we always have to balance the noise and the increased traffic of growth for the city. So there's always going to be that, and there's no way to get around that. But at the same time, We want the city to be a pleasant city to live in, and so
And safe.
and safe,
And it can't
absolutely.
be
without
safe
question.
on a short, a narrow 2-lane street. One side's already got parking on it. And without an access road and speed bumps, nothing is going to get any better. It's only going to get worse.
So we're very glad that you came in to share that with us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you all for listening to me.
Appreciate it. Are there any other public comments here tonight? Lee, are there any comments?
We have no written correspondence.
Okay, Ms. Hoffert? Ms. Woodson, I forgot to announce you are here as well. Any comments? Okay. City Council.
Not that I can remember at this moment.
Okay. Any further comments?
No, not at this time.
Nope.
All right. Okay. We got it all out. I will say that I have received several public comments. Several people have reached out to me saying that they're wanting to recommend that the city council hire internally for the city manager position. We'll talk about that more later tonight. We'll move on to number 8A. And this is kind of a follow-up to the fire task force presentation to you, the council, on February 13th. Thought that went well. And the question put to you was, do you want the task force to keep going? I think, is that fair to say? And keep working on a potential 28E agency. I think it'd be good if we take a little time and just talk about that. But is there a motion to approve this this item?
Make a motion.
Motion to approve, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. What discussion do we have about this?
Just as an update, I've been in contact through email with the task force members to see when the next potential date would be to meet if we were in a consensus to keep continuing. And it looks like February 27th would work for most of us. And what would happen at that meeting is I will review the video from the work session and then make sure I jot down and document every concern or piece of feedback that we received so that we can, again, like go through that as a task force and apply next steps to how to solve that or decide, what we need to do for a decision on those things.
So you want to kind of take the council's questions and feedback and discuss it as a task force?
Yeah, and then, like I said, in the work session, the next steps, once we can figure out as a task force what we do to address those specific things. We also want to keep in mind our things that we talked about were not finalized, and how we would move forward with that as well, whether it's if we need a consultant. I don't think we need to make that decision right now because I think we might be able to figure some stuff out amongst the different entities. But we would, I know Eric's working on a new draft based on what we talked about at the work session. So then that could be, once that's kind of updated after the 27th, that'll be sent out to the council and the trustees and the association. So they can take a quick look, see how we're doing in that aspect.
Any other comments about that meeting?
Yes, I would like to see the task force continue. I have some concerns about the proposed makeup of the 9-person board, so that for me is like is a concern right now, and I feel like pretty soon we're at the point where we should bring in somebody that has experience writing 28E agreements, whether that's a consultant or just somebody that, like a lawyer that's done a bunch before. I feel like we need to, I feel like we need a professional person to look it over and help us kind of mediate the things that we're kind of stuck on. Depending on what that looked up. When I was looking at Pat Callan's website, one of the things he says it does is help write 28E agreements. And I was like, oh, cool, there's people that do that. So I feel like that might be pretty soon down the road. And as a council member, I guess I'd want to encourage that avenue.
And we still have to have our legal sign off on that and take a look at
Right,
it. So
of course.
definitely, we definitely will have that.
That document itself is the all important document. It's really getting to some I could call it finalized language, even though, you know, it's always gonna be tweaking until the final vote, right? But like you're getting a real solid draft of that. is
Yeah,
really the
and
next
I forgot
step,
to
right? So-
mention that, like, that is part of the next steps is to separate what would be, we would propose to be an example of what the bylaws would look like compared to
Versus
what
the
the
agreement.
actual agreement would be. So it's more clear, because I know that was, we were trying to make it kind of, I want you to understand what the bylaws could look like, but it also was kind of mixed in there. So we want to, as a task force, make sure to separate that better. So
Yeah, I think
everyone,
two parallel
Yep.
documents being developed at the same time is a smart way to go.
Cause I share the concern about the voting, membership makeup of the board. The way I see it is you've got two government entities coming together and sharing financial resources with a group, an established group, corporation group, of volunteers that are gonna provide the service. So they're kind of in essence, the vendor and us and the rural are the clients, is how I see it. So I don't understand when the board makeup is two representatives from the city, two representatives from the rural, and then two representatives from the volunteer fire department. I don't honestly understand why that is necessary, because the governing body that makes up that is the city and the rural. So they are going to be the ones to have representation on decision-making, because we're pooling our resources together to create that. And then we just give direction on it, and then the volunteers are the experts in that field, and they do the job that, you know, they were hired to do, so to speak, not really hired, but hired to do. And so I don't really know why there has to be like two, and two
I've wondered
that
if-
way.
Yeah, I mean, I have the same concern, and I've wondered if the task force might be able to put together like, for those pieces that are, you know, how do we do this? You know, maybe
Yeah.
option 1, 2, 3 or something like that, you know, where we could really
It's like
kinda
as
try to get our heads
it's
around.
like as a business woman, I have my, business that I go to a vendor to get, to pay for the services that I need or materials that I need, but they don't necessarily have a say in how I operate my business. That's why I don't understand why there has to be like a vote, board representation from that end of it.
Yeah.
There should just be representation from the rural and the fire district. To be on the board.
I think that is definitely a possibility. It's just something we haven't talked about really thoroughly, like on the task force. I have heard, from at least one of the trustees during the task force, I'm not sure if you were at that one, that they would fight to the death to allow the volunteers to have a say in that agency. So that was from a trustee who's not on the fire department. And I definitely hear you, Cara, and I also, for me personally, I have this saying, nothing about us without us. So it doesn't make sense to me to completely leave any deciding factors. The volunteers who sacrifice their lives, and they raise a lot of money, by the way, through fundraising and writing grants and things like that. They're doing the actual physical labor, most of them unpaid, to not have a say in this agency. And that's my own personal opinion. I want to do what is legal and what makes sense,
Yeah.
and I know that they all do too. Of course, we have to do what's legal and So I think it's important as another step to reach out to those 28E agencies that have this kind of structure and say, how has this been going for you? You know, what are some of those instances where you've had to make those decisions and it got kind of congested with all of the participation from all three of these entities? But we
Well, and
can
that's
make
another
sure, yeah.
reason why, to your point, a professional
Yeah,
input
some
would
experience.
really go a long way. We won't solve it all tonight, but
Yeah.
if there are any other, I don't want to go too deep into this, but if there are any other comments about the presentation that task force had to council, that you would like to bring up?
I just thought it was very informative and that you guys have come a long way and that clearly there's some things that need to be hashed out and will continue. So I'm
Yeah.
very supportive of the task force continuing to move forward. I am curious though, did we discuss a timeframe of kind of having a proposal kind of hard written, like, what was it, summer? Were we talking summer?
I don't
Like,
think I
as a-
defined
as a-
I don't know if we
specific
had a
date.
deadline
We haven't
with
talked
that.
about a deadline.
Yeah.
As sooner the better would be wonderful, but
Right, and I would think it would go faster if we had the expertise of somebody that, you know, who's specialized in writing 28 agreements, the 28 agreements. So, maybe.
I know it takes a lot, obviously, clearly, and there's a lot of steps to go through, but that's kind of a big discussion I get from around the community is. Still going, it's still going, it's still going, so obviously,
Yeah.
I love to be able to share and say, there's work being done, which is great, but.
Yeah. It turns out that it's very complicated, right?
Of course.
So the
yes.
thing to remember about that is, you know, and I feel like sometimes there are fingers being pointed in different directions about the timeline, and the task force is the one that is driving that timeline, right? I mean, the task force sets their own meeting dates, the task force sets their own agenda, the task force sets their own meeting duration, the task force is doing the work to, you know what I mean? So the task force really is the one who, you know, is driving that.
and we have had a lot of meetings.
A lot of meetings.
Yeah. Yeah, we've tried for like 2 or 3 months, we went like every other week almost. Like clockwork, so it's been a lot, but I think we've made a lot of progress. too.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, well, the question put to you as the council is, do you want the task force to continue working on this project and propose a 2080 agency? It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion about this? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The motion carries 5-0. The task force will continue. We'll move on to item 8A. This is a resolution authorizing the use of a preliminary official statement for sale of general obligation corporate purpose bonds, series 2023A.
Motion to approve resolution.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. City Clerk Geertz, can you get us up to speed here?
So, I was reading through your resolution, established by Dorsey and Whitney, they are our bond counsel. And, based on the process of bonding, you have before you, what's called a preliminary official statement. And so what that is that is a financial statement, put together by, the bond counsel, our financial advisor, Nathan Summers, with UMB and myself. We go through all of our debt. We go through revenues, expenditures, and all of the information in there is collaborated into this preliminary official statement. This statement, once council has adopted, is then presented as part of the bonding process. So the investors then that's what they're going to be looking at to make the decision to purchase the bond, the funding. So again, this is one of those things that comes before council, and you have to have the trust in the legal counsel, your city clerk, and the financial advisors that this information is correct and true. I'm here to tell you that from my perspective, everything is in order as it is in your preliminary document. It is a document that is, ready to have your approval in order to proceed forward with the bonding.
Right.
And
Any other questions?
I have a question real quickly. Is there anything in here that might be like a red or pink or a light red flag of any of the projects that we're doing right now that might hinder anything that we're trying to do? Okay.
No, everything in your preliminary statements are data and facts. So there's nothing there that's going to, send up a red flag saying that we can't afford to do the project. The good news is your project has come in under, at 2.3, and some change. And so along with that, I would add, I received, a bond council statement from Nathan Summers. And, so we have an aggressive, we're gonna put before you at the next meeting, an aggressive, debt for this bond, as far as the payment. And so, we both discussed, and what we agreed upon is that with the debt service balance that we have, that we would be aggressive with the principal with this 2023 general obligation that would, allow us to minimize our debt service levy and keep it well below the 2.25, which is a good thing for our taxpayers. And then it will allow us to be best prepared to leverage for new debt going forward with possibly phase 2 of City Hall. So our idea is to put us in a very strong financial position, pay down the debt that is being that's held at a higher interest. And that would definitely put us in a better position from a bonding. And then allows us to pay those lower interest ones. May even allow us to have additional funding to pay those down as well. So
How is,
that's our plan.
how is this reflected in our bond rating? Has that changed? Has that needle changed a little bit in our rating, our city's rating?
So that would be a different process that we would have to do.
Okay,
So we would actually have to go through the process of having our city rated. And through that, and
I didn't know if this would only like add to, because I know at one time that had fluctuated. That
So-
rating had fluctuated.
so we have a couple different things. We have the actual bond rating, and then you have your debt service.
Okay,
Your debt service levies and amounts, which Nathan had provided to you in those previous reports. If I'm understanding you correctly, your question would be pertaining to, are we an A, an
Yeah.
AA, or a
Yeah,
B?
yeah,
And where is
yeah.
that? So that process would have to be something that we would initiate,
okay,
and we would be working with a bonding company or a specific bonding group to get a new rating.
okay.
And we could talk about that, and see if that's something that council would like to pursue.
Any further discussion, council? Okay, if none, this is a roll call vote to approve this resolution. I'll start with you, Mayor Pro Tem, Cara McFerren.
Yes.
Councilmember Dominguez,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Schiltz,
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez.
Yeah.
The resolution is approved 5-0. Item 8B, consideration to approve this resolution adopting the 2023 electric reliability plan. I do not see our electric superintendent here with us tonight. Is he here? Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
Motion to approve resolution?
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the resolution. Mr. Geertz, could you walk us through this real briefly, just to kind of help us understand what we're looking at here, the reliability sign?
Basically a plan that states that we do inspection and maintenance on our lines.
It's a standard file with the UAV protocol or IUB, sorry.
It's a yearly thing.
It's compliance.
Any more questions or discussion? Anything else you want to add for us?
No.
Okay, this is a roll call vote. I'll start again with you, Mayor Pro Tem Cara McFerren,
Yes.
Councilmember Dominguez.
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yep.
Councilmember Schiltz,
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez. The resolution passes 5-0. I would like, as a point of clarification, to make sure that yep counts as a affirmative. Okay,
I'll do
I just
that.
wanted to make sure. It's okay. I don't mind. As long as it's. Fine.
Thank you, Mr. Mead.
Item 8C, this is discussion and appropriate action for RAGBRAI 2023 community agreement. Since we are a potential pass-through town on July 29th, you have an agreement here in front of you. I'll accept a motion to approve this agreement, and then we'll discuss.
Motion, no, sorry. Yep, that sounds good.
It's moved and seconded to approve this RAGBRAI agreement. Understand we have some folks here who've been working on this. Who wants to walk us through what we're looking at?
I'll get it started.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Great.
well, I'm gonna do the best I can because, our city manager was approached by the committee, requesting to be a pass-through town. And typically, they like it to keep it hush-hush until it's went through its appropriate process. It's a little difficult because it takes a village to manage this event. And so, historically, the city has worked, partnered with the Chamber of Commerce, to handle that. There's been several different ways. This would probably, I think this is my fourth RAGBRAI event that I've been within the community. This would be my second one with the city. And so with that said, I didn't have the opportunity to meet with the chamber director. Our schedules didn't. But we went back and forth through some emails, and he was great to put it before his board. And so I see they have a board president and past president. I did speak with Economic Development Director Penn from We Lead. We went through it. The neat thing about this time, the RAGBRAI is offering a dangling carrot, is what I call it. They're actually offering $5,000 to the community to assist with the costs that happen with the event. And with that said, I went back and forth with some communications with the chamber, and I don't want to, I'll say what I have to say after you have the opportunity to bring them up to date about your discussion with the chamber board and what you want to, what you folks would be interested in participating in.
So, yes, all that is correct. My name is Charles Brook. I'm the chamber director for the Chamber of Commerce here in West Liberty. So we had the discussion, I brought up to the board did agree. However, they brought up a lot of questions. Just because right now it's February, we just approved our budget. This was not in the budget at all. So that, yes, if they dangle a carrot like that, that's definitely going to help. However, that I'll just be honest, this is a part-time job. So, and on top of that, our July and August are 3 out of our 5 main events that we host are in that 3 weeks. So to say it's going to be tough to host 20,000 plus.
Oh, we will.
Yeah, I've already formed a small committee, hoping that someone on my small committee will take over the RAGBRAI because I won't be able to add the hours. Just in our budget, we cannot grow me to a full-time position. So that is our challenges, or one of our main challenges. Did we discuss? There's a few more. Sorry.
So actually, a couple of challenges that we would like to bring up with the city, because as we say, it's going to take a village to do this. So some of the major things that we want to make sure we have in line are additional trash receptacles downtown. Is that something that the city would be willing to help with? Number one. Additional cleanup after that's done, because I would imagine that not everything is going to make it into those trash receptacles. And the third thing would be like bathrooms, but I'm not
And who does that fall on?
Yes.
Is that-
So,
How did we do this last time? What was the?
okay, so here, and here's the thing, I would, based on the last one we did was in 2018. We had, 2 chairs, which were not of the chamber board, they were just 2 community members that stepped up and said, yep, we'll take on organizing.
Yeah.
And we'll put together a committee, and then we'll organize volunteers. The city agreed upon the streets, the garbage, and the restrooms and water. Areas for people to get water,
Yeah, we had a-
signage, I think we did some signage.
Yeah, we had a unique system rigged for the water
Yep.
stations.
Yes,
And
Tyler
garbage.
George Pearl put together a really nice,
Yeah, yep.
and then the city also, updated an ordinance, passed their ordinance, and the city. Basically, what they did is they set vendor fees to collect the vendor fees to offset, as us too, our budget's already in place. To offset the cost for, additional costs for, getting the porta potties, the staffing and those things. So,
Do we know what the financial impact was from 2018 at the end of the day?
we did not, so here's the thing, we didn't count the beans when it came to employees. Because it was a community event, just like any of our other community events, and employees were staffed to handle those things just as we would with any type of community event. The beans that were counted, as they say, were the vendor revenue that came in for the permits, offset marketing. It offset the signage, the cost of the porta potties, and I do have all of that information. That we can take a look at.
Do you know offhand? I mean, just, was it
5,000, it was just right shy of 5,000.
that it cost the city?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where this became, let's see, I'm gonna choose my words correctly here. Where it became complicated was the city had collected the vendor fees. And because of the assistance of the chamber and their assistance with marketing and things, the city then said, whatever we get in addition over our costs, then we'll turn that over to the chamber. But we did receive a comment because cities are not to directly contribute to nonprofit associations or groups. So I think that my recommendation, but I think that if council wants to proceed with committing to us be the pass-through town, then I think the next steps would be is organizing that discussion with the chamber, and we're gonna need to get 2 chairs for the committee, and then we can discuss, for example, if the city collects the vendor costs to cover porta potties, things that we did in the past, and the $5,000 then could be then set aside as well for if there's additional hours that Charles may need to put in as the director, if there's additional costs for marketing. I think that we would have to work through that budget together.
Yeah.
And figure that out. And again, that's something that your committee could put together, but, again, if the city's going, I just think there's some more discussion that can be had, and I think it's doable. But you really can't move much forward on that until
Right.
council
Yeah.
decides if you want to be pass-through.
Or having somebody be that communication liaison with Bright, because they do require you to
Yes.
find a point person for
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
And that way they can gather all the information. But I do know that when we did it last couple of times, the groups or organizations or social groups here in town that participated to sell things. I think everybody made well and sold out.
And we had a huge support from West Liberty Foods. Their staff members really stepped up, and we probably had about 20 of their staff members who volunteered and participated in assisting. So that was very helpful, along with, again, all the other organizations in the community brought forth, volunteers and
Because I do think it's important to, I want to point out, it's really important to get people in the community to get on board ahead of time. Because I tell you what, if we as a city don't do that and organize it, what's gonna happen is you're gonna have all these outside vendors coming to West Liberty to set up, to sell things, food, whatever it is. And then our community is not getting those.
And I was gonna ask, actually, that's what I was gonna ask here, if our businesses that are in town would get the vendor fee waived. Or,
I don't think we can do that because Ragbri charges a vendor fee and you can't get out of that.
so I mean, I think that would all have to be decided with your ordinance, and I mean, it's discussion, I think, that needs to go. Those are things that we need to put before a committee, and then though we have time to pass the ordinance. I think what's most important now is that if depending on what council the action is to follow those steps that Ragbri has stated, is get those committee chairs. And then they have meetings coming up in March that they're gonna want those individuals to attend, because that's your collection of information, that's your marching orders. And likewise, they're wanting to close out their map,
The route.
their route. I can tell you, it is a lot of work, and it's a short period of time, but it's a lot of time where you've got an excessive amount of people. But it's the largest marketing event that we can have, and we still have people from, we've had a social media page, we still have people from 2018 that have come back to our community, and they still support our restaurants, and our businesses. So I just want to say, I mean, yeah, it is a lot to ask of all of us, but it's an event, I think, that we can.
that's what I'd be concerned about, is a missed opportunity for 20,000 people being exposed to West Liberty is not a very often opportunity that we.
Right.
Right.
That is true.
And I think West Liberty has gotten a lot of exposure in the last years. I think people want to come here now. I think Bragg is a huge opportunity for businesses and community to kind of explode and get the leap that it needs for the future.
We want to keep that positive momentum going.
Because they will have a contingent that follows these bikers all across the state.
That's true.
And they're gonna be coming right here.
So I don't know if the chamber or Ken, if you have anything more to add based on just our brief discussions or.
I know, once things get decided, a route and where it comes through West Liberty is a big thing. And that will be discussed with all of our businesses downtown, because it's not just like a children's festival or, a street festival that we have, like Latin festival, like this is.
It's massive.
Yeah.
And you are kicking butt from 6 a.m. until noon.
Right.
And then by the time 1 o'clock comes around, it's everybody's passed.
But we did discuss that we would use the chamber email as the direct route.
Oh.
And then I would have multiple eyes on it in our email account, and then we could just form but we also discussed, different, I wouldn't call them levels of like vendor prices if Ragbri doesn't do something, but like more of, if you're a chamber member here in West Liberty, or maybe even Muscatine County chamber member, there's a discount to it as being a vendor for Ragbri. And then if you're somebody from Des Moines area that wants to be a vendor here, like this is your price. I don't know.
Right.
So, and Ragbri will, and part of your marching order packet, as I call it, they're going to lay all of that information out. They're gonna put together, they're gonna tell you, here's our recommendation. Because they're promoting that the individuals that are participating are, you know, they've been chosen through their lottery, they're paid participants. We know that there's thousands of people that jump on and write independently, but what the purpose of RAGBRAI is also is that they're promoting that, you know, the paid participants get, you know, the discounts, or they get, you know, viewed as just that, they paid to be a participant, they've been picked in that lottery piece of it. And again, that's, I mean, this is the machine, this is 50 years, and it's a well thought out plan, and they will give us all the tools and the resources. It really is up to all of us to put that chair and that co-chair and that committee together.
That time in.
And then, you know, and have that communication of who's doing what, and yeah.
Mr. Whirling?
I just want to make sure that we make considerations for, we're gonna probably need extra help getting the bicyclists and all their support staff through town safely, to make sure the normal traffic through town is not an issue. Additionally, we're probably gonna have to have first responders available for any medical issues, especially if it's gonna be hot. So having an ambulance on standby to staff for that, firefighters, we're gonna need a lot of, on top of all the business part, we've also got to make sure the public safety part's part of that planning process.
And that's all in their packet.
Right, and I
That's
know
all in their packet. Because they work
A
from a
bunch of-
statewide.
we had a bunch of volunteers from the community at one point.
Yep.
Stationed at different corners throughout town to direct the campers and the
So, and that,
members, the contingents.
that will be another question, because we do not know if we're going to be a staging town. So a staging town is also not only you're a pastor, but you're staging, because then their support vehicles. So I think in 2018, we were not the staging town. I think their support vehicles were up towards Atlanta. So I mean, those type of things all depend, because if you're not a staging town, then your support vehicles have a different route. So they are typically not supposed to come in through, they're separated routes. But as I stated, these are all things that, again, they have it all worked out. We put together what works for our community, and just like Chief said, I mean, the bigger part of it is the safest route, and making sure we have those pieces in place too.
Do we have to make a decision tonight? Can we like do a poll on social media or something
Well,
like?
I think,
The timeline.
Yeah, you,
The timeline means tonight.
Oh, okay.
I think,
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm for it, but I think like you said, obviously, there's a lot of things that need to be put into place, but like here in this letter says April 1st is like the big informative packet meeting. I think once we get that, we can base.
You have to say yes or no on March 1st.
I know, but I'm saying like I'm for it.
Oh.
But I'm saying, I would say April 1st.
Omar will chair this thing.
Yeah, how much?
You know-
agree?
You know, after April 1st, and then we start setting our meetings, and then we get the chamber and the council together and see
right,
what they recommend. and
Yep.
We can base it off.
we'll start rocking and rolling, as they say, after the marching, the packet, all of that, your committee chairs. Once they get all that information, then that's what happens is then, you know, council will move into their vendor ordinance. Then you'll have committee meetings, and you'll have, you know, all of those pieces they will align.
So chamber, or do I hear you saying that you are willing to take the lead on this and good to go?
We don't have, someone specifically the co-chair or the chair yet, but I have a committee and we'll vote, but we have voted, yes, we'll
Okay.
head it.
Great. Sounds good.
This falls
Well-
the week after the fair, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
July 29.
Oh,
So, okay, well, it sounds like, you couldn't ask for a better team if everybody wants to do it. Chambers on board.
50th year, 50th anniversary.
Absolutely.
Sure.
And again, I mean, I would certainly keep in mind, that when it comes to the funding piece of it, you don't have to make that decision.
Yeah.
But I just would
Right.
like council to understand, we would have an opportunity to have vendor fees to offset some of our costs. I think it's only rightfully so that if they're going to provide us that $5,000, that we would support the chamber with those funds. And then, again, we can have those discussions and align how that is. But we can certainly understand from, their budget and their director, and being able to have those hours is gonna be priceless for us.
Sure.
And,
Holding
so that
off
would
on
be my
any official
recommendation.
decision on that right now.
No, I just
But
want us
just
to
bear-
keep that.
Bearing
yeah,
in mind that $5,000 from McGregor goes a long way.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
sure. Is there any further discussion from council about this? Approving this community agreement?
This doesn't affect our budget, right? When we set our budget, this doesn't affect.
Yeah.
The time frame.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know if it was like between the time or not.
We'll work through it.
Okay.
It's feasible, is what you're saying.
We'll work through
Yeah.
it.
Good question.
It's called amendments, yeah.
Sure.
But that's a good question.
Any further discussion, questions? All right, this is a consent vote to approve this Ragbri L, the 50th year of Ragbri 2023 community agreement. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The agreement is approved, 5-0. We're moving on to setting the date for a public hearing on electric utility rate increase and amendment to ordinance rate. And the public hearing is to be set for March 7th, 2023 at 7:30 PM. Is there a motion to set the date for the public hearing?
Motion.
Is there a
Second.
It's moved and seconded to set the date for the public hearing for the electric utility rate increase. This is a roll call, consent vote for the,
This is the consent vote, but I would like an opportunity for discussion. Mr.
yeah,
Mayor.
okay, yes, let's go to that now.
So, I wanted to bring council up to date on the work that's been established since our last public hearing. But I'm going to ask Shari, the clerk, to fill you in on the work that she's done with BHMG, because she needs to be recognized for that time that she's put into this.
Okay, so I worked with BHMG with verbal from there to kind of try and figure out why things were not lining up exactly how they are supposed to, especially because all of our ordinances read a certain way and it doesn't really make sense with the billing. So Lee actually helped me go through and look at some different ordinances, and we found the way that they used to be written to fit with our utility billing. So I was able to get some information from verbal. She did let me know that as long as we get through everything that we're going through right now, by the end of March, we'll be fine with that 6-month power charge. And I just want to let you guys know
Good.
that if we're able to get that implemented, we would be okay.
Good.
However, if we weren't able to get it done by that point in time, then we would need to wait until a later month for that portion of it. The rest of it would still be put into place. So
Sure.
the nice thing with the ordinances is we can kind of split that out because that's a one-time thing, whereas the electric rates are over time.
Mhm.
So I did get all that information. I got it over to Lee. Lee was gonna get it all drafted up, and then I will take a look and make sure that we have everything put in place to fit on the billing side of it.
Okay, fantastic. That sounds like great. Any other discussion, questions, comments? So we're restarting this process for the utility rate increase with a public hearing again. And it sounds like the language then is gonna be good improvement.
Yeah, we're just, we're gonna ask the attorneys to put their blessing on it,
Okay.
as well.
Good idea.
Just, yeah, I mean, it's a legal piece of work, and the other thing is I think that come for the public hearing, then Shari and I'll put together a timeline, what we need to look at as far as making that passage happen
Yeah.
before the end of the month, and we'll leave it up to council to decide which timeline option we want to go with then.
Okay.
Thank you for
Sounds
that.
good. Any other questions, discussion, council? All right, consent vote then. All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The public hearing is set for March 7th. During our work session, council indicated that we would like to take advantage of this closed session. We kind of have this on here as an option to utilize if needed. So we'll just hold off on item 8E for tonight and move right into closed session and take action after that closed session. So I will accept a motion to move into closed session.
Motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded to move into closed session. Any discussion?
I guess I have like a technical question. So I'm looking at like 21.5 in Iowa code, and it says, you can have this conversation to prevent like irreparable injury to somebody's reputation. But we're just talking about like applying for city manager, I mean, that's not like a negative thing, right? Like, that's not gonna injure somebody's reputation. So is it really something that like, is it legal to talk about it in closed session?
Councilmember Smith, I appreciate you.
I
You are-
love you so much.
Love it. Fair question. I don't know the answer to it, but I'll lean on
So
city hall staff.
So, you had a letter that I requested the closed hearing manager, because there is possible discussion with regards to performance, possible discussion to an
Okay.
internal promotion process. And in order to legally protect our council, it is in your best interest to go into a closed session to discuss those items. When you come out of the closed session, then you can make a decision and you can make them, or you don't have to, but you can make a motion based on what that discussion has been
And as I understand it,
discussed.
it's like whenever we're talking about any staff member's performance, it's, from what I've heard from our attorneys, it's best to make sure that you offer that option for a closed session. So that, I mean, it just protects the city.
Personnel is
basically.
confidential.
Yeah,
That's the best way I can simplify it. For any type of personnel discussion is a confidential discussion. That only council is privy to.
Does that answer your questions?
It does, I guess I have like an ancillary follow-up question, so then like the next point after that in the closed session says that a governmental body shall not discuss any business during closed session which does not directly relate to the specific reason announced as a justification for closed session. So does that mean that we can't make decisions about our hiring process as a whole, like what we're gonna proceed to do? We can't talk about that during the closed session because that's specifically about one person's performance during the closed session. So we should wait until open session to talk about, this is what we're gonna do going forward with our hiring plan. Or not, maybe I'm like interpreting it wrong, but
that's how I would read
it
it.
has to be specific, like we have to be careful
Yeah,
what we do and don't talk about during closed
I
session.
think that's a very good point because it's not like, well, now we're in closed session, we can just talk about whatever we want, right? It needs to stay on topic. That's-
Right, so it has to be about one person's thing, and not about,
Yep.
this is what we're gonna do overall.
You
Absolutely.
should not discuss about your hiring process. You should not,
Right.
you only are to discuss.
Yeah.
It's not like we're gonna, let's make a plan, you
Okay,
know, nothing
okay.
like that.
Okay.
And they're all recorded, right, just in case.
They are recorded, yes.
Okay. I just
Or-
wanted to do it right.
The point being,
Later.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
The point being that the council isn't trying to be
Yeah,
sneaky about this or anything. It's just performance issues or employee issues need to be private.
The biggest thing is just, it's, again, personal information is confidential, but most importantly is protecting the council and the employee. From any potential no-nos
Okay.
that you shouldn't say in the public or that could
Thanks, guys.
potentially lead you into litigation.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
Okay.
And then are you gonna do that so
Yep.
that she can go?
So I just want to make sure that you've got their. You got everybody.
I've got the motion in the second one because of that.
And
Okay, so now they gotta-
Call with 4-0, is that? Do we need to wait for Councilmember McFerren to return?
I would because she's president. And in the meantime, I'll go over and I'll get the.
Okay, sounds good.
And then we would just.
As chief.
Go to.
Yes. Apologies for this interruption.
If you want to leave your notes for me and I'll just. It's all like I'm.
oh, Leo.
Have a
He's
hard time?
We need to move him up in the agenda.
Because we're already on. We should already have this.
So like, these are vibrant conversations, maybe we need to entertain that starting earlier than 7:30.
Like, Okay, there's a motion and a second to return to open session. Is there any discussion? It's a roll call vote. Councilmember McFerren.
Yes.
Councilmember Dominguez.
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Schiltz.
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez.
Yes.
We return to open session. We're gonna look at item 9C. Discussion and action of closed session pertaining to the Geertz.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion, if I may, to move forward with our city manager search internally.
Right, can you explain a little more what do you mean by that? So maybe we can get a second if they know exactly what you mean.
Just move forward with city management, I don't know what you call it, search, appointment.
Posting the position.
But
So you're
posting
saying-
the position and then, yes, of course, posting the position, but doing the internal first.
For the internal process. first.
So
Process
it's an
first.
internal process first. Yes,
Yes.
okay, I think I follow you.
Second that motion.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to pursue an internal hiring process for the city manager position. Any discussion about that? We've talked a lot about this, so it seems like as we go, you know, like we try to figure out how we actually want to do this.
I believe that we should collect external and internal applications at the same time, so we can compare everything. We have cast a wide net so that we can make sure we're making the best decision. There's proof we're making the best decision, because we've got all these other things to compare it to, and they're not as good as this one that we've chosen. So I probably vote no, but it's nothing personal. It's not that I don't think they
Yeah,
do a
yeah.
bad job. It's just that I feel like we need to be able to say with certainty that we have exhausted, you know, we have looked everywhere and this is the best choice we can have.
Honestly, I have faith that we have the internal candidate to do this position. But like I said before, I also know people that are invested in the community that is worth a look. You know, if they were interested, there may be no other applicants that are interested, you know.
So you're in your discussion. So the city,
There's already a motion in the second.
you got the second, okay, I just want to make sure, I want to make sure you.
We have the discussion.
Yeah.
So.
No, I'm between the switching, I just wanted to make sure you're.
Can I ask a question? Since if we move forward with the internal process for candidate process, if we move forward with that, does that, and if somebody applies outside, can they still apply if they see it posted on the board?
So our internal process is that we would post the position to allow, I think we allow 5 days, I'd have to look at it. You allow a period of time internally for those applicants to apply. Then your internal applicant applies, then you can review those applications and then you can interview. Then at that point in time, you can say, I'm still not certain that that's the applicant, so now we're gonna move to the external process. And then from that external process, but here's where I'm telling you, it's not as simple as just posting the position.
Means
Like-
hiring a consultant, probably.
Yes, yeah, so I want to make sure that you're understanding that. And then then with that process, then I want you to be prepared. We would want to get an RFP prepared and you're gonna want to submit that, so. From a timeline perspective, I guess I would move directly towards doing your consultant now.
Yeah,
Would
and
be my
what-
recommendation, if that's, if you're wanting both those options,
Right.
then you're running out of time.
So Councilmember
Well,
Martinez.
what happens if can anybody apply though during that process?
Yeah.
During the internal process, if they see it They can.
Anybody internally within the organization.
It's
No
legally
one
restricted to
external.
internal.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I have the same question too, like our time frame. If we do external, obviously the consultant fee and all that stuff. But the consultant only processes the applications and gives us what is on the application, or do they have a say? Or how does the consultant work?
They would manage the entire process, so they would help with the publication of it, they would help with collecting the data, and collating it for you. They would reach out specifically to people who they think might be good applicants through their network, you know, that's the quick way.
Do we have to use a consultant, or can like Josh and I say, hey, we'll look at the applications and.
Sounds like a lot.
I do that in my sleep,
been, like,
Josh. I'm
stuck in
just
all
saying.
business.
It could lead to a liability, and
That's my.
I would highly recommend you talk to legal counsel before you would go that route. The purpose of the consultant would be to separate that, and make sure that.
So it's like a neutral party that's doing that. Okay, that makes sense.
Is that just not really done for cities to run that process themselves? Is that what you're saying?
It is a.
Who's gonna run the process? Who has the knowledge to run the process and administrate the process?
I mean,
do it.
Yeah,
You're gonna have daily work. And I would, again, I'm just gonna advise that you get legal advice on that.
I mean, the only thing
I can't think of a city,
for liability reasons.
where
a city our size that would
you got a
not.
consultant that's gonna affect the people, what if you're not?
All of the.
They bring this,
Just
you
hired.
just pay a consultant, they bring in these
Color.
processes, and you didn't like any of them.
Then they start over.
Then we pay them for nothing.
Exactly, there's gonna be a
That's-
reoccurring.
That's been I think that has often been the case, and again, back to our discussion during the work session. You know, the city has done both of these options before, right?
And look where we're at.
Internal and external, and definitely with external, you know, when you hire a consultant and do that external kind of thing, you know, I've heard it from many people and felt it myself when I was a part of it. It's kind of like, it's hard to get good applicants, you know? I mean, when you think about it, it's like, it's a tough role to hire for. The person has to move here, you know, so the timing has to be just perfect in their career where they can make that jump, you know what I mean? And they have to want just this job, you know what I mean? So becomes a very limited pool.
Plus the position of a neutral party, whoever that may be. I mean, they would be responsible for garnering people. They have to find applicants.
Yeah.
That would be, I think, way over
But I think
your position, because you'd have to go out into professional organizations and do searches.
And you, I really, the city helps with that.
Yeah, I do that actually for my job.
Your position as the council member, it would put you in a legal.
Precarious, because you actually.
That's
make the
what I
decision.
need to hear.
That would not be your position
Okay.
as a council member.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that personally advocating against that, but I'm just saying, I feel like it is, you know, it's easy to think, oh, if we do that, we're gonna get these amazing pool, but it hasn't always been the case either, right? So
No.
that's what makes it hard.
Yeah,
That's
it's
what
not.
makes it a hard decision.
And I don't want to be throwing money at a consultant.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to trust a consultant that doesn't know West Liberty and hasn't lived here. That's, I mean,
It's hard to,
trivia were
well,
available.
it's hard to explain to people that are not from West Liberty what
Yeah.
West Liberty really is.
Yeah, but,
If you bring somebody in, they're not.
And we have to give them parameters of what we want. What are we looking for? Do we want 10 candidates? Do we want 5 applicants? So that they have to be responsible for searching. That even 5 or 4 candidates is a lot for us on our end to consider. Because that takes a lot of
We
our
had-
time. Yeah.
From the last go around, we had nearly 40 applicants. And out of those 40 applicants, the best of the best was 4. And that's not That,
I think it was 5, but then
Yeah.
one dropped out.
Oh, that's right.
And then it was
Right,
right.
he took out, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I wasn't including myself. Oh. I thought they were just doing it. I'm saying for external applicant, I mean,
Yeah, you were-
I was the internal applicant, but for external out of 40 some and. Because when you do, you'll get. And I mean, that is the purpose of having the consultant is they are processing their reading, they are narrowing that down, they're using the matrix based on what your expectations are, what you're looking for. And then they're also then gonna compare it to, they're doing background checks that they can do that you would not have the ability legally to do. So I mean,
Oh my
so I mean,
gosh,
there's a
making
reason
it so
why,
difficult.
there's a cost, but the cost. The
For sure.
cost for a consultant is so much better than being sued.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
For sure. Yeah, okay, well, geez Louise, that's right. We can talk this into the ground. It's a very complicated, aren't you guys glad you're part of the city council this time? It's fun. Sure. Yeah. I am.
You know. Yeah, I was gonna answer you yes, but I was also still thinking, sorry. Heard that in a while. Thank you, John. For helping me not to.
You're gonna make that a motion?
No, what if we do, we post it internally, we have applicable candidate, we do that. I mean, as a council, we still have the ability to review that person, make sure they're doing a good job, make sure that they're following through on everything that we expect of them and that the community expects of them. And yeah, that's with anybody.
That's very
And we're
true.
on a tight timeline right now, and we have such amazing projects that I really want to see before I'm not on council anymore. Like being able to be a council member sitting in our own chambers in phase 2 city hall. Like I want to see that stuff. And I think that's why I'm comfortable considering that to post internally.
That process then would then be you post internally, accept internal candidates and then do interviews of those candidates. So if you weren't comfortable at that point,
Yeah,
then you would go back to hiring the consultant. It would, if that were to happen, then it would extend the timeline a little bit, but it's not like you're not without that option. is what you're saying,
exactly,
right?
exactly.
What were you, sorry, what were you gonna say?
Just some food for thought, during the process, the projects that we have in place, the daily work that we have in place. Look at who you're going to entrust, that those things are going to be continually managed.
Yeah, there's like,
Any further discussion? Let me remind you what we're talking about. The motion and the second is that we post the city manager position internally. And start there. Any other discussion about that? Okay. All right, well, then we'll vote. I think this is the consent vote. Yes, so we have a motion and a second to post the city manager job for internal candidates only. All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no.
No.
The motion carries 4-1. And we will post the job internally. Is there anything else we need to talk about related to that? Does the employment committee need to meet to finalize that job? How do we finalize that listing itself?
Mr. Mayor, if you would allow me at least 2 days. One, I'll put our process together. I want us to reach out to legal counsel and make sure we've got, advice, legal advice
Good.
on how to proceed with this. I want to, from what I'm hearing, I also want to have them best prepare us from doing that internal step to best prepare us to the external step. So that way you have everything in line, for those processes.
That sounds good. And would you just communicate? Could you just, since we're at this stage, could you just communicate with us
Yes,
to keep us just,
yes, just
Counsel
don't
and
reply to me
myself.
is all, but I will.
don't reply all
communicate
council,
with all.
but if you could just kind of keep council and myself in the
Yes.
loop on that process, I think that would be the most streamlined thing to do at this point for that sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, anything else we need to discuss there that we missed? Okay, all right. We made it. We're at number 10. I think tonight, I don't know if we have staff that have jumped back on Zoom. Are there questions or about any of these reports?
Where's the city engineer?
He left it.
Yeah.
I have information for him. He
Okay.
left and then he said he would bring more back, but yes, I do have information from him.
Is that something you want to read it to us? or-
Yeah, he told me exactly what I need to let you know. So on well number 2, he's separating it into 2 phases. The first portion, he said that the bids are gonna start in March for the second meeting in March. And then for the second portion, it's gonna be April, and they're hoping to have everything done by the summer. Because West Liberty Foods is wanting to use one of the walls and they don't want to have anything done until this is completed. And then he said he talked to Jay and they're gonna start clearing trees in about a month.
Oh, wow.
And
Good.
he will have some more information for you this next coming meeting. He'll go into a little bit more detail, he said. And that's all I have for you.
Okay, awesome, great. Other questions about reports?
On Ally,
Yeah.
about the process with the grant for space realization.
Oh, the utilization space grant?
Yeah,
Yeah, so we have, the state library offers a space utilization grant. What that is it's $3,000 to hire a consultant who will charge us $3,000. They have 2 consultants that the state library approves of. One of them is an architect out of Des Moines. And the other one is has a PhD. She is the Carnegie Libraries in Iowa program administrator. And a former professor of mine. She is very familiar with this building in particular, given that it is a Carnegie library. And she would come in and take a look at what we have going on in our space currently. She's gonna kind of give us a 2-for-1 deal where she'll give us some ideas on what we need to do and change moving forward. So capital improvement plan kind of stuff, more than just this space renovation, which is how my capital improvement plan is currently, where it's staff renovation. And then she would also give us some ideas on how we could better utilize the space that we currently have without renovations. So I will be applying for that.
Question about, is it today we'll discuss options regarding Atalissa? What does that mean? Like Atalissa Library? Like,
No.
okay, what's that mean?
Atalissa, I have not heard back from them. I do need to touch, I need to contact their clerk. They had a council meeting last week. I presented at their meeting in January and they did not approve their contract or to contract with the library. So we are, I brought it back to my board. My board has stuck their grounds at the $12 per capita. Just as for context, the citizens of West Liberty pay around $75 per capita for library services. Atalissa currently pays $8 per capita. We are asking for 12. And they did not want to pay that. So I haven't heard whether or not they voted on it or not. So we'll see.
They have to choose somebody.
They have to choose somebody. It is a legal requirement for the, or for all cities in Iowa to contract with a library, so if their, some of their property tax dollars must go to library services. There is no legal ramifications, it's all honor-based, just like the rest of libraries.
I see.
All honor-based system where, they will get a stern call from the Department of Management saying, you're not paying for a library. And then they are opening themselves up to lawsuits from their citizens if they were to, if somebody from Atlas were to be upset about the fact that they can't read books. So they have to contract with somebody. The other consequence for them, because of the Iowa open access law, part of Enrich Iowa is that we will not be able to serve them according to the contract that we sign with the rest of the state of Iowa. So we will have to deny services to any person who lives in the city limits of Iowa.
Oh, no.
Or our board can adopt a policy and charge them an annual rate if they would like to
Use this library.
use this library. Which is how all others, a bunch of other states do libraries in general, like if you live in Chicago and you want to check out books in Springfield, you have to pay a subscription fee
Well,
at Springfield.
common thing.
Yeah, it's very common. It's just in Iowa, we have this open access agreement. So as long as your library, which is the vast majority of the libraries in the state, sign this open access agreement, you can have a library card at any library in the state without having to pay for it. Because the state gives us a certain amount of money based on open access statistics. So if they decide to contract with somebody else, bless them, they're more than welcome to, and we are able to treat them as an open access patron, which means that they then have access to our physical collections. They don't have access to our digital collections that they would get through whatever library they are choosing to contract through. But we would still be able to serve them if they don't participate in a library or don't contribute to a library with open access, then we can serve them.
Also, for parking lot lights,
Yeah, a breaker keeps slipping and I need to call out.
okay, I didn't know if like the city took care of that or.
So the ceiling tiles in the bathroom, have you considered removing the ceiling tile? Yes. That's what we're gonna do. Okay, I just say this because my own students, enjoy doing that in the band hallway because they can reach them. Mostly they would just hide a bottle of milk up there for like 6 months at a time and then check it to see what happens. Kids are disgusting and removing them entirely works.
What we're planning on doing is removing all of them from the side of the room
Where they can't get up on the
get up on the toilet.
And then there was something, I don't remember if it was online or the index or something, but something about needing help supervising snack time after school Wednesdays. Did you get any feedback on that? I can't remember where I read
What
it.
we need, so our children's librarian wrote her monthly article.
Yeah,
For our snack problem, our food problem in the
Yeah,
library.
it's-
We have kids eating food in the bathrooms. They use the changing tables as a table and eat off of the changing table in the handicap stall.
yeah.
It's gross and I want to put up a poster that says people poop here.
Might not stop,
But it won't.
right.
So I've been finding food everywhere in the library since we banned food. Before we banned food, we were finding it everywhere in the library out in the open. Now it's just hidden in corners. And so we are looking for community suggestions. We have a board in the children's department that kids can provide suggestions on. There are no bad suggestions. We will then go through them and discuss the logistics as a staff as to what options we have to us.
One thing I didn't know, if maybe that could be something to ask for help with community policing and, you know, building positive relationships with police officers, and is that something they could help with? Or is that something you could discuss with the middle school or elementary school, like, could we write a grant to implement an after-school snack program and they eat their snacks before they're coming there or something? So those are two ideas I had, don't know if they're
Love that.
feasible at
Yeah.
all, but.
Honestly, one of the biggest things that I would like to see is just more adults in the space.
Yeah,
If we had more adults in the library after school, kids would not believe that that they own the place.
right,
And so just having a grown-up sitting around in the honestly, that's how I discourage most of the behaviors. I just go sit near them
Yeah,
for a while and then
absolutely.
and then they just, they're like, well, this is weird and I'm going away.
You feel like most of these kids are because their parents are home after school?
I think a lot of it is that their parents are at home after school, but we're also a place with comfy chairs and Wi-Fi.
Do the schools still provide after school programs, do you know?
The elementary school does. And I believe that's it.
'Cause I know back when I was growing up, I went to school elementary.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't have, like they did when we were growing up, where you could go to a certain, it's like,
No.
the cutoff is a lot lower now.
Well, thanks for what you do,
Thank you.
and
Sorry.
great place for
You know,
kids to be.
It's
even if
our,
they're-
it's our, I'm happy to be something, but. We're hoping to launch this How to Talk, so kids will listen to kids will talk program in the fall. We'll be opening it up for staff and city employees and. I include council in this as soon as we get the materials after I order them. To start working through it. It'll probably be Thursday mornings, which I know is not an ideal time for anybody. But that's when we are quiet at the library, for us to be able to do it without having to take additional staff time or close. But we're hoping to work through that to a certain degree so that we can work out some of the kinks to get started and provide a support network for parents in the community so that they feel a little bit better. Parents and community members in interacting with kids.
Sounds great. Cool. City clerk and deputy clerk, anything to share, reports, anything?
I do.
Yeah.
So within my report, I had asked the city manager, to give you, this is very, very important information right now with the SF 181 and the other legislation that is, SF 181 was signed, February 20th, yesterday. That now places our, so with that said, that will change the rollbacks for 2022 fiscal year. That's going to allow our county auditors to adjust that. And there'll be more information coming about, you know, with that, how that's going to look. The other part is it's extended our budget to April 30th. So a lot of people are like, oh yeah, that gives us more time. And for a clerk, that's like, no.
So I guess with that being, sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
With that being like signed and stuff, do you recommend us to have like I know we have our budget meeting, or like a pre-budget meeting to talk what has been signed and what affects us and doesn't affect us?
I think that, that's a good question. And I think what needs to happen is I need to bring, I'll just keep you up to date as we're working through the process. There's calculation tools that will allow you to know how it's going to impact. The pieces that is, will there be a rollback to, there's still some unknowns. Not uncommon with these things. Let's pass it and then we'll figure it out. Most importantly, though, I really want you to pay attention to 1124 and 1125. I sent you that information. Please reach out to the Iowa League of Cities and our representatives. And then again, follow up with our senators and or get people that you know involved. This I can certainly see that there, you know, there's some progressive steps that that they're wanting to take from a property tax perspective. But it's also, and I'm not going to get into political, but there's alarming pieces in there saying that this is going to take away the local authority to levy property tax dollars. And placing it at the state level. And I'm really hopeful that they're able to come to a positive. So when we're talking about this, we talked about the 810 levy of our property tax. So, and I want to allow you time to absorb that information of what they're proposing. And they're proposing to change that levy structure. But that also could impact your authority to levy those dollars for our budget,
And then basically we'll just get what we get.
pretty much.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot we can. A lot, we still
I'm
all
just-
still have to learn
To
about that.
simplify
yeah,
that, and I just, again, I really want you to think, and then the other part is going to be 1125. There's discussion about, the lost revenue, local option sales tax revenue, and changes to that structure as well. I can tell you right now that the city, and I try to put these in brief notes. We collect around $500,000 in local option sales tax. If this goes the direction that they're proposing, that $500,000 is going to go away from our budget. That $500,000 right now, how we have it established is it's split into thirds. 1/3 of it goes to property tax relief, 1/3 of it goes to street improvements. And the other third is split between the park and rec and the library. I can tell you with the 1124 limitations and what they're proposing in 1125, there's potential devastation to our general fund budget.
And we would be one of many towns across Iowa, it sounds like.
So I think that from my position, I understand that there's some progressive ways there, where change is not a bad thing. But I think there still needs to be some work on allowing the local level to have the authority over those dollars is all I would. And I know I spoke extensively with, Ken, because, those are dollars too that we leverage. Because that's going to impact TIF. And that's going to impact growth under that urban renewal if we don't have those marketing tools. And so that would be one of those potential trickle down negative effects that we don't want to see.
Well, keep sending information to us that you come across that would be helpful to, keep learning about it and.
And part of my next piece will be is I'll work with the calculating tool and see if I can put together. So you have a visual of dollars impact.
Yeah,
Okay.
that would be helpful, yeah. See that.
That's
Okay.
all I have.
Great. Deputy Clerk, real quick, did you have anything?
No, she had everything.
Sounds good, okay. I
One-
think-
Can I say one really quick thing?
Yes,
I
yeah.
just want to say, I don't know who Austin is, but it looks like he's been very busy and he's passing a bunch of tests. And I just want to shout out to Austin. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, I noticed as well,
Yeah.
with, wastewater that someone was passing, I don't know all the names. but-
And got his, it's or her, I don't know who the person is, but CDL permit test.
Yes,
Great, pass that test.
so, good job, excellent. Okay. If there's, nothing further, then, Councilmember Smith, I will set the motion to adjourn.
Lose my streak. Motion to adjourn, please.
There's a motion to adjourn, in a second.
Second.
Moved and seconded by multiple people.
I'm wonderful, I saw it's gonna go up in her voice, so
Thank
I'm
you.
going with Dana.
Thank you, Nick. Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Meeting is adjourned.